Hello, welcome to my bookshelf, and today I will be doing my introduction to my Throwback Thursday vlog. It's a monthly thing. Pages and Pens is the creator of this, so I have to give her all the props for this idea. But basically, you pick a book to reread, you vlog your experience, and you post it the third Thursday of every month, or at least you try your best to, if you're like me anyway. So, with that in mind, I chose Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl to reread this month. And just a little background about my reading experience with this. I read this in high school, and I honestly didn't really enjoy it that much the first time I read it. And really, the reason for that was it was different from the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which I love that movie, starring Gene Wilder. Love it. And for me, as a kid anyway, I just couldn't get past this idea that the book and the movie were like these two separate entities, and I just didn't like it. And I just kept imagining the movie, and I couldn't really get past that enough to really enjoy the book. So I'm hoping that as an adult, I can read it and at least get something more out of it. So those are kind of my initial thoughts about the story itself and like my experience reading it. So yeah, this is a pretty short book. I think it's like 150-ish pages, so it's not that long. So it should take maybe like 2 hours total-ish to read it for me. So that's not so bad. There's pictures in here as well, which is kind of exciting. But yeah, it is a kid's book. It's pretty short. So yeah, I will keep you updated on my thoughts as I read this interesting story. Hey, just want to update you guys. I just started this book, and the beginning of the book has this like list of the 5 children. It just kind of gives you like a really generic like character detail about them. From what I remember, they are pretty one note. Like, they just kind of fill whatever stereotype they need to fill. And Charlie's the only one that has some depth to him. Yeah, I also love that it's a chapter book, so there's 30 chapters, and it like gives you like the names of all the chapters at the very beginning. There's the book. There's the wonderful drawings in my edition. It also goes on talking about like his entire family and how they're super old. So there's more of the pictures, and there's Charlie. I love that these pictures look like they could have been drawn by like a child, which is an interesting choice. There's their like shack, I guess, which yeah, they talk about how poor they are, and as you know, the grandparents, they all sleep in one bed, and like Charlie and his parents, and they have to sleep on the floor, which is not exactly ideal. And then, no more pictures for a while. But yeah, it's been good so far. So here I am. There's my lovely bookmark. And like Grandpa Joe is like telling this story about Willy Wonka because Charlie doesn't really know it. There he is. And so he's like telling him all about Willy Wonka, and we're kind of getting the backstory on that. So that's where I'm at right now. Things are going pretty good. I just wanted to update you pretty quick. But yeah, so far, it's definitely a children's book, so it's a really easy read. But it's a lot of fun. I just get the feeling that I want to like read this aloud to a child. I think they would love it. But I'm not reading aloud, sadly, to a child, so it's just different. But yeah, I will keep updating you with my thoughts and feelings, so we'll see what happens as I continue on. Hey, just wanted to update you guys one last time for the night. I'm on page 63, and a lot has happened. I think that's just kind of how it works with children's books. Like, the pace is extremely fast. There's 5 children that get picked to go into the chocolate factory, and they're kind of revealed in pairs. So the first 2 in one chapter, and then I think there's like a chapter in between, and then the other 2 are revealed, and then there's a couple chapters. And by the way, every chapter is like 2 or 3 pages, so they're pretty short. And then there's a couple chapters of Charlie opening up several different candy bars to no avail until he finally finds some money on the street and he buys 2 different candy bars and he finds it in the second one. Pretty much everything happens the way that it does in the movie for the most part. I think the movie just kind of elaborates a little bit and draws out those scenes, but like the meat is still there and it's still pretty much the same idea. So yeah, Charlie got his ticket and now they just entered the chocolate factory. I'm finishing up for tonight, so I will see you tomorrow. And honestly, like, I'm already on page 63, so according to Goodreads, I'm 41% through the book, and honestly, it hasn't been that long. So I think I can finish it easily by tomorrow. And I can kind of let you know and finish up my thoughts and go from there. So I will update you tomorrow. Hey, so I don't really have a full update or anything because I've only read like 8 pages, but I just wanted to like appreciate this picture of Willy Wonka and his like fabulous like ballet moves going on in front of this like chocolate river, as you can see. It's pretty fabulous. And then when we switch the page, like these are the Oompa Loompas. This is like what I guess they're supposed to look like. They look like they're having a great time though, so that's something. But yeah, it says that they're like pretty short. I think like knee high or something. They're supposed to be very, very short. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I just wanted to update real quick. Here I am. Yeah, Augustus was not too smart, and yeah, now he's in the river, so we get to see him go up the pipe real soon. Hey guys, I've gotten like one more page in. But I just wanted to show you this passage. So I'm reading it and like Augustus just fell in. And as you can see, Mrs. Gloop, she is all concerned and says that he'll drown. He can't swim a yard. Save him, save him. And then Mr. Gloop is like, good heavens, woman. I'm not diving in there. I've got my best suit on. And I was like, that's your son? You're just going to let your son drown because you have a suit on? Like, please. I mean, these parents are just as bad as the children in this story. It's pretty comical, I guess, in a horrifying way. Yeah. And also, which I didn't mention last time, but, yeah, I mean, the Oompa Loompas aren't, like, slaves per se, but I mean, they are working for him, and I know he's providing them with, like, food and shelter and stuff, like room and board, more or less, but I don't know. They're just kind of, like, happy servants, which I don't know how I feel about. But, I mean, I know that they're just, like, supposed to be, like, fun little creatures, but I think there's a line in here even that's, like, Mr. Wonka says that they're people because, like, when we're first introduced to them, everyone's like, what are those things? Like, they can't be real. And Mr. Wonka's like, yes, they're people. They are people. They're Oompa Loompas. And then he describes, like, where they're from and stuff. Which, by the way, he, like, shipped the Oompa Loompas here, like, via crates with holes in it, which I know it's, like, a children's book, but, like, yeah, not exactly the ideal way to travel from a fictional country here. I mean, presumably it's pretty far away. But yeah, so some interesting things going on. Yeah, I'm just astounded by the pace of this book. Like, wow, everything just happens so fast. I don't really like that. I mean, maybe as a kid that's exciting, but to me, I'm just like, whoa, let's just like slow down for a second. Because so much has happened so quickly, and I feel like we don't really have time to process anything that has happened. But yeah, here we are. Yeah, those are just my thoughts as I'm reading it, and I will keep you updated. So I just read the first Oompa Loompa song, and this is the end of it. They're joking about Augustus Gloop being turned into fudge, which is slightly horrifying. It's a very long song, as you can see. It's all this italics. It starts here. So it's about 2 pages, really. But yeah, it's quite a long song. Which is kind of like funny, like in a book, but like in real life would be horrifying. Also, there's a description of the Oompa Loompas down here. Here it is. The Oompa Loompa bowed and smiled, showing beautiful white teeth. His skin was rosy white,
His long hair was golden brown, and the top of his head came just above the height of Mr. Wonka's knee. He wore the usual deer skin slung over his shoulder.
So there's the official description of the Oompa Loompa. The mystery has been solved. I still don't know how I feel about that though. Like, I'm glad that they're not a certain race, but I still don't think that means that they can like treat the Oompa Loompa as like they're not full people. I mean, admittedly, it is a kid story, and they're kind of treated almost like fairies or nymphs or something. They don't really have their own like unique characteristics. They're all just kind of like lumped together in a group of just like the Oompa Loompas, and they all just kind of do things together, and they don't seem to like I said, have their own unique personalities. Like so far anyway in the book. So, admittedly, it's a kid's book, and they're just kind of meant to be like fairy tale magical creatures in a sense. But yeah, I'm not sure about their backstories so much, but in the story, like, you know, they serve their purpose and it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting to say the least. So yeah, those are some more thoughts and feelings on the Oompa Loompas.
Another update. I feel like I'm constantly updating you guys. I feel like I should just like do a commentary of my reading experience at this point. Yeah, so I'm on page 84 as you can see, and this is the part where they are going on the boat through the tunnel. And Mr. Wonka has started singing a song. And if you read it, and it goes up here too, it's exactly like word for word what Gene Wilder sings in the original movie, and the part that's super creepy and random, straight from the book, which is really interesting to me. Another really cool detail on this page is that Mr. Wonka he gives Charlie a mug full of chocolate from the river because he notices how thin they are, both him and Grandpa Joe. And of course, they absolutely love it. And I like that Wonka is kind of humanized, and he actually like cares about these people at least a little bit, which we don't really get that much in the movies. So that was just a really nice touch. So again, just wanted to update you guys.
Alright, so another update. I just wanted to kind of point out, which I don't know if I specifically pointed out before, that a lot of the dialogue, especially that's in here, is word for word in the movie. Talking specifically about the original one, I honestly don't remember enough of the remake to honestly be able to say that or not. I'm assuming that they're pretty similar, but I'm not 100% sure. But either way, the dialogue is very, very similar. It's really weird to read at times because I imagine the character saying it, and it kind of takes me out of the book a little bit. But there's also some interesting changes that I'm noticing now too. So they just left the invention room, and Violet sadly has been turned into a blueberry. And so yeah, now they're like wandering off, and they're trying to find like the next place to go, and they're like running through this corridor, and there's a lot of different doors on both sides, and they all have really interesting names. Some of them like we don't ever see in the movie, so I can show you some of those.
There's edible marshmallow pillows, which is pretty exciting. There's also a section, though, as you can see right underneath it, that says lickable wallpaper for nurseries. And then, of course, if you keep reading, you'll see it's like word for word, like dialogue from the scene in the movie, because they actually get to see that in the movie, and they actually get to lick them and stuff. And there's a whole thing about the snozzberry, you know, things like that. And then under that, there's hot ice cream for cold days, which basically is just ice cream that warms you up when you're freezing. And then there's also hot ice cubes for putting in hot drinks to make them hotter, which is another interesting idea. There's a room that says cows that give chocolate milk. I mean, naturally. And then there's an interesting section that says fizzy lifting drinks. And if you remember in the movie, this is a whole scene where Charlie and his grandpa kind of do something they're not supposed to, and they drink it and things like that. But that doesn't happen in here. Wonka just kind of warns them about like why the fizzy drinks are not great, because like Oompa Loompas have tried it, and like one is probably on the moon at this point because he never burped, which is also kind of a funny thing because Wonka says that, like, I don't know why he didn't burp. Maybe he was too polite. I'll never know. But I also just think this line is really funny, which you're probably looking at right now. But it says right here, burp, you silly ass burp. Um, who talks like that? Yeah, so Mr. Wonka isn't exactly nice to the Oompa Loompas. He's like testing on them. And like in this case, he's just like kind of cussing them out a little bit, like in a children's book way. And then like he ends up on the moon. It's just weird. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And now there's a section where they're going to a door that says square candies that look round, which obviously is not in the movie. So I honestly don't know what that's gonna be about, but it'll be interesting. And it's its own chapter, which really doesn't say a whole lot because, as I can show you, like it's like 4 pages. So not a lot. But anyway, that's where I'm at. Just something I wanted to point out, as always. And yeah, I will keep you updated. Remember this page? Yeah, I just read it. And I had to share this with you. So yeah, this is the square candies that look round, which is a play on words, which is hilarious. But yeah, so they're talking about how the square candies do look square. They're just like cubes. And I just wanted to point out also that Mr. Wonka is just kind of rude. So here he is. He goes, my dear old fish, go and boil your head. Which again, who talks like that? And then Mrs. Salt is like, how dare you speak to me like that? And then he goes, oh, do shut up. Now watch this. And so like, basically, as you can see on the other side, they're the square candies and they're looking round. Like, looking around the room. Ha ha ha. Square candies that look round. Ha ha. Hilarious. It's weird though, because at the same time, these candies are also somewhat alive. So there's kind of that theme going on throughout this book. There's just lots of interesting creatures. And of course, as you can see, Veruca is about to meet her end in the next chapter. I guess from my understanding, like in the original movie, like it just would have been so much more difficult to work with squirrels or make that work. So they changed it to geese. And honestly, like it works really, really well. And there's the same like puns about, you know, being a bad nut, being a bad egg. It works. It works. And it was a lot easier for them to do. So it makes a lot of sense. So yep, that's where I'm at, and hopefully I won't update you on page 110 because look, I'm at 19. I need to keep these updates a bit more sparsed out, I think.
Hey, I'm back at my normal location because I have finally finished Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Wow, it was a really quick read. I honestly could have read this all in one day, but I guess I'm glad I dragged it out a little bit. Very simple, straightforward story, especially if you've already watched the movies and it's one of your favorites, like it is for me. So, a couple things I just wanted to add about like the last few pages that I read that I haven't mentioned to you guys is like the children, they all kind of meet their ends in very similar ways to the movie. Including my TV at the end. And again, a lot of it is very word for word. And then after it's just Charlie left, Wonka turns to Charlie and he's just really excited and he tells them about this whole plan of his to find a child to run his chocolate factory for him after he passes away and things like that. So there is no like scene where he like pretends to be mad at him or whatever, like it is in the original movie. And they ride in the elevator and they bust through the wall. There's also a scene before they do all that, like when they're originally in the elevator and you get to see all the different buttons and it's all labeled and there's some really interesting rooms that we never get to see. But yeah, so the elevator busts through the ceiling. And instead of that being like the end, we go to Charlie's family's house, and they like literally crash through their roof. And then like everyone's like panicking as they would, like if someone just crashed through the roof. And they're like, you could have killed us, what's going on? And they try to explain and they're still pretty terrified, but yet they kind of like they push the bed that the grandparents are on into the elevator, and like the parents go in and then they all just fly off. And the last line is like one of the other grandparents is like, is there gonna be food where we're going? I'm starving. We're all starving. And then Charlie's like smiles and he's like, heh heh heh, there's gonna be lots of food where we're going, kind of a thing. So yeah, that's the end of the book. I don't know how I feel about this book at the end of this. I guess I would say that it was enjoyable, but it wasn't that great. And honestly, a lot of it is just because I am really familiar with the movie, but I can't help but feel that. So it's a fine story, but just watch the movie. It's kind of my reaction. Or at least like if you're going to read the book, I would say read the book before you watch the movie. I think you would get more enjoyment out of the story. Yeah, that's where we're at. I don't know if I have really anything else to say other than it was pretty much exactly what I remembered from when I read it the first time. Though I will say, when I read it the first time, I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was just like in a weird mood or whatever, but I remember getting to the end and like feeling really depressed. I kind of had this overwhelming despair come over me while I was reading it, like the first time originally in high school. And I'm not really sure if that's just like weird teenage hormones or what it was, or because it was really different. Yeah, so I had a very different reading experience. Yeah, I really didn't enjoy it the first time I read it, and it seemed to drag on, and it seemed to just be really weird and different, and I didn't like that. But I mean, it was actually really similar. That's what really strikes me this time is just how similar it is. There's a couple differences, but not really that big of a difference. So I don't know why I always thought that it was so different, but it really isn't. So I'm not really sure what's up with that. But those are just kind of my reactions to it from before. And now, like, I don't feel depressed or weird at all. Like, I was just kind of like, I'm glad it's over because it was just so similar. But yeah, so those were my thoughts and feelings on Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts if you've ever read this book. And also just like which movie do you like better? I've made my vote pretty clear, so I'd be very curious to see if you agree with me or not. So with that, I just want to, as always, thank you guys for watching this video, and until next time.